Jay Walker, Tiffany Greene here with you. Jay, I just got to say that so much has transpired since we were in Atlanta, and now we find ourselves back in the conversation of HBCU football. Lots happening. Ed Reed, the latest to make headlines, and that was a short-term engagement that he had with Bethune-Cookman.
Absolutely. I feel like Marvin Gaye. What's going on? Mercy, mercy me. Fantastic end of the season with the Celebration Bowl, North Carolina Central, HBCU national champs. And then the stuff with Deion, Coach Prime moving on to Colorado. Some folks got offended by that. A lot of coaches I talked to understood that, and I think just to put a bow on the Coach Prime situation, I think, let's first and foremost, it worked. I mean, Jackson State got a lot out of Coach Prime. Coach Prime got a lot out of Jackson State. I just want to see let's come together and have a thank you come together right now. Hey, it worked. He moved on. Didn't stay as long as they wanted him to stay, but he put Jackson State on the map. Now they've tossed it to TC Taylor. Let's see what he can do with it. So I just think some thanks are in order by both. I think JSU fans owe Coach Prime a thank you, and I think Coach Prime owes JSU a huge thank you when you talk about the whole situation there.
But hey, when you look at, what Bethune-Cookman was looking to do with another Pro Football Hall of Famer and Ed Reed looking to elevate the status of their football program, hoping that maybe they could carbon copy some of that success that Coach Prime had in Jackson, Mississippi, that didn't turn out too well. It's hard to agree in principle, not sign the dotted line, and then talk about your employer before you're officially hired.
Yeah. And I think, we got to say this because we know this. And it's proven out. I mean, there's pretty much only one Prime. We knew that one Prime. And I think some others may come close to it, but having that success that Prime had at Jackson, Mississippi, I mean, you're going to be chasing, you're going to be chasing that for a long time. With Bethune-Cookman, you and I covering HBCU sports like we do, what's going on with Bethune-Cookman? And I'm not taking Ed Reed's side, and I'm not taking the university's side. Mistakes have been made. But I'm looking at Bethune-Cookman, the bigger picture. I mean, look at that turnover they've had there. President Crite left. They had an interim president. Now they're on a second interim president. Longtime athletic director Lynn Thompson, who I really think kept it together, left. They've had replacements in men's basketball, women's basketball, bowling, golf. It's like tennis. If you name it, there's so much turnover. And I think the bigger message is sometimes, and I'm going to go back to Lynn Thompson's AD, when you topple or you lose strong leaders, there's a lot of stuff that was uncovered starts to float to the top. And I think that's what we're seeing at Bethune-Cookman. And it's like, I think with Ed Reed, let's be honest, Tim, tell me your opinion. You went to FAMU, right? You love FAMU. And you're not going to let anybody from a PWI, non-HBCU, talk about Bethune-Cookman. Am I correct?
That's correct. I'm rooting for Bethune-Cookman here. I want them to see success. I love that they had success, from like 2010 on. They won like 6 MEAC championships, then moved over to the SWAC a couple of years ago. Terry Sims was a part of that success. They moved on from him. And so there was yet this different type of anticipation around Ed Reed coming there. And so Bethune-Cookman is good for Florida A&M. Florida A&M is good for Bethune-Cookman. That's the rivalry. That's what you want to see at the end of the day. I want to see HBCUs thrive. So I was rooting for Bethune-Cookman. I was rooting for Ed Reed and for that marriage to take place between them to see, what could sprout or blossom from it.
Yeah. When you look at it, I'm a Howard guy, and, it's Howard versus everybody in the HBCU world, but I don't want anybody talking about other HBCUs. I won't let them talk about Hampton. Hampton gets under my skin. A&T gets under my skin. But if you're part of MEAC and you're part of HBCU coach, sure. And I think that's something that needs to be addressed. I mean, when you come in not having HBCU experience, you don't come in talking about it. You can say, hey, I'm going to prove some things, but you can't talk about it. That's talking about my family. And I think, even with Coach Prime, he didn't talk about it. He said, well, let's just fix some things here. He respected the tradition first. You remember the first press conference, the school of Walter Payton and Lynn Barney and Jackie Slater, Robert Brazile. He talked about this, said, let's get it better. I don't know if you come out the box like Ed did, just talking about it. Get to know what's going on there, analyze it, then say, how do we make it better and work with it? And I think, if you're Bethune-Cookman, did you give him an orientation into what he's getting into? I heard that he did not even visit the school. He He took the job on a Zoom interview and did not even tour the facilities. Well, if you don't take it amongst yourself to tour the facilities to show him what he's getting into, just what you really want, then that's poor leadership. And then another one, if you're going to take that job without seeing the facilities, and then you see something there that weren't expecting, well, that's on you too a little bit. So I think, there's been a whole lot going on there. There's always the truth is probably somewhere in the middle, but missed opportunity, because I think there was going to be some legitimate excitement down there in Daytona Beach with Ed Reed as a head coach.
I'm going to say at the end of the day, that's what it is, a missed opportunity. And I want to go back to a point that you mentioned about talking about, your HBCU family. It's something that is so personal to each and every one of us. And in a time where HBCU now have gotten so much more attention and are starting to grab headlines, it's one of those things where you don't want to see negative press that comes from it. And you have to take good with bad. But at the end of the day, it's something that's really, really personal to me and to you and to all the HBCU graduates, where now we're starting this dialogue and everything is so polarizing. You either take one side or another. You're either for it or against it. And there is not a lot of middle ground. Well, two things can be true, right? So yes, Ed Reed had a wonderful opportunity to get his head coaching experience started at Bethune-Cookman University. Yes, Bethune-Cookman could maybe do some things better in terms of their onboarding process, or perhaps the professionalism has to be met on both sides. It has to be extended on both sides. So it's just one of those things where it's, at the end of the day, it's most unfortunate. And so, Jay, I'm curious now to see what's the next step for AD Reggie Theus, and where does Bethune-Cookman go?
And Theus, he's catching some heat. I mean, he's catching some heat. And, I always question, it's kind of tough. That's real old school HBCU, to be the athletic director and the coach of a sport. I remember, Buddy Pugh did it for a little bit interim at South Carolina State. We've seen a couple places do it just for an interim bit. But now this is Coach AD Theus' second year. You got rid of a coach in football and you had all those other coaches leave. He catches some heat there. And when you're an athletic director, what happens there? And I think somewhere or another, you gotta separate those titles. I mean, I just don't think it can work that way. I understand for financial reasons you may want to do it, but and we need to hear from him. And it's tough. How do you hear from him when right now he's in the middle of conference play in basketball? I mean, he's on the road. I'm sure Ed Reed wanted to talk to him, and where's Coach Theus? Oh, they might have been playing out of state, whatever, on some of the money games. So he's got to make a big hire right now. There's some big names that are coming out there that I think, you talk to a lot of fans, and I know a name that was up there, one of the finalists was Raymond Woody, who was a defensive coordinator at South Florida, got those ties there, went to Bethune-Cookman University, loves the school there. Larry Little has a whole lot of influence on what's going to happen at the Hall of Famer, rightfully so. But that's one of the names I'm hearing for Bethune-Cookman, and proven winner there, but they need to come up with a good one. What do you think about that?
I mean, I think one of the obvious ones that slaps you in the face is Sam Washington, right? So he helped to lead North Carolina A&T to great success. He took the Rod Broadway era and started his own as a head coach, won a couple of Celebration Bowls and Black College National Championships. He coached at Bethune-Cookman before. He's been in the
I didn't know he coached there.
And not far from his hometown of Tampa. So, I mean, I think you want someone who has the winning elements of experience. He's got a coaching staff that he could bring on with him that are also potentially looking for opportunities as well. I think Sam Washington could do a whole lot of good, especially with recruiting in the area.
You talk about what's going on. I want to know what's going on with North Carolina A&T. We didn't get a chance to really address that. But why is Sam Washington even not coaching right now? But 7-4, and when you look at it, all 4 teams that they lost to last year won postseason games. North Carolina Central, HBCU national champion. Duke won their bowl game. North Dakota State almost won a second national championship, and Gardner-Webb, the team that beat them for the Big South, won their first round playoff game. And you got him watching. I don't know what's going on with A&T. We're going to call this the Marvin Gaye episode of Black College Live.
What's going on? That's how we're going to aptly name it, because we didn't get a chance to dissect it. And I think around, communities and HBCU circles, many of us were scratching our heads like, what's happening? And now you see Vincent Brown come in. I think it's an interesting hire that was made because he too went to Mississippi Valley State, much like Sam Washington did. He had the opportunity to coach a little bit in the HBCU space, and then just came over from a CAA team with Mike London at William and Mary. So now that A&T is moving over to the CAA, he brings some experience on, and you have the opportunity to play with him in the league.
Yeah, I know Brown. You know, I'll tell Brown, hey, good luck to you out there, Brown. He did a good job when he was at Howard University. Everywhere he's gone, he's done a good job. For him, first-time head coach, you're getting one of those blue blood jobs. You know, that's like, hey, when Deion took over Jackson State, that's one of the blue blood jobs you can get out there. Coaching at FAMU is a blue blood job. Coaching North Carolina A&T is a blue blood job. You're taking over a program that's got a winning record. So they expect you to win. And, you know, and when you get in the business of coaching, you got to win. You've got to win. And A&T's got a lot of pressure on that, because I think that athletic director has a lot of pressure on him as well. You go from MEAC, where you were kind of the kings of the MEAC. You go to Big South, don't win the Big South. You go in the CAA, which is considered a step up. Like, ooh.
Yeah, I was going to say the CAA sent 5 teams to the FCS playoffs this past season.
Yeah, and you know, in Hampton's there, and you know, I had a bigger conversation with a good friend of mine. Like, you know, my opinion on these schools joining non-HBCU conferences. That's what we're gonna wait and see, because I call it like I see it. That's what we get paid to. Tennessee State was big fish. 2001, people can't believe that they were the #1 team in all of FCS football, and we haven't talked about Tennessee State in a long, long time. Besides Eddie George.
And look, you've got Eddie George, who's now going to be going on, you know, season 3 or 4 there. And you look at his approach to how he's handling things. He was recently on a podcast and talked about, you know, hey, there are things that need to be improved. There are things that we can do better. His approach, however, a little bit more calculated or tactical or strategic in doing so. But how long are they going to keep Eddie George there? And how long does he want to stay there for him to see success? They've reached about 5 wins, haven't gotten beyond that point since he took over. So is he there for the long haul? And is the university committed to seeing it through under the Eddie George era?
Yeah, he's doing it the right way, though. I do think he's doing it the right way. They're competitive, you know, but ultimately you judge coaches by wins and losses. And I think he'd be the first to, you know, he needs to win. He needs
Except
to win.
if you're North Carolina A&T, because you weren't judging by wins and losses, given the fact that you got a coach with a winning record.
Yes, I'm with you there. And you know what? But that's the approach. Do you take, going into Bethune-Cookman, did they want the Coach Prime approach? Did they want the Eddie George approach? Or did they want a hybrid? I think there's a middle ground for both. You know, you got a Hall of Famer coming in there. Hey, respect the Hall of Famer. He knows what he's doing. Listen to him. But also, you know, have an approach in there. You know, and I'll be real curious. And down the road, we're going to talk to Ed Reed, hear his side of the story. But I'm going to kind of side with something's going on at Bethune-Cookman. And I'll say that. And I don't like what I'm seeing out of Bethune-Cookman right now. They've got to justify some stuff. They have to justify some stuff.
Well, we will wait to hear their response and see if there is anything more. And obviously, many will be watching, including us, as to what their next steps are.
And let me add this last
program.
Yeah, let me add this last little thing that got to me, and learn this from anybody, any coach. You cannot say that this school doesn't care about students. You cannot say that, because you've got everybody at that school. It's their job to care about students. If you're gonna have a couple bad apples you think don't care about students, you call them out by name. But you cannot say, who cares about these? No, they don't care about these students, because now you're talking about the president, you're talking about the vice president. My mother-in-law's in academia. You're talking about her. You're talking about the people that clean up buildings. You're talking about the locker room man, the people that help raise folks. That's too strong a statement to make blanket out there. And I think, you know, if Ed had to go back and talk about it, that's a statement you can't make. Because once you make that statement, you're almost calling my hand. You're almost trying to force me into that one. So I'd say that word to the wise. You know, we may have some faults with stuff, but you don't say they don't care about students. They may care in different ways. I'm going to end it on that one, partner.
All right. Whew. Good to talk again. some
Miss you.
HBCU football. Yeah, man, miss you, man. We got to do it again.